The hip-hop world just got turned upside down, literally. Kendrick Lamar has done something so unexpected, so game-changing, that even Drake's most loyal fans are speechless. Imagine the top of the industry tables suddenly flipping like a chessboard mid-match. It's exactly what's happening right now. What started as a subtle feud between two megastars has now turned into a cultural earthquake, shaking every label, every streaming platform, and every fan base. Drake has dominated charts for over a decade. But Kendrick's latest move doesn't just challenge that dominance, it redefines the rules of the game. And the craziest part? Nobody, not even the insiders, saw this coming. Prepare yourself, because what you're about to hear is bigger than a diss track, bigger than a tour announcement. It's a full-on industry flip, and it could change hip-hop forever. The first sign that something seismic was brewing didn't come from Kendrick Lamar himself. It came from whispers, small, subtle, but loaded with weight in the late-night corners of the industry. Producer, known for working with some of the West Coast's heaviest hitters, posted a disappearing Instagram story that read simply, "Tables about to turn." No name, no context, just a phrase and a clock emoji. Within minutes, screenshots started flying across fan accounts. Theories exploded. But nobody, not even the most plugged-in hip-hop insiders, could have predicted how deep this move would cut. Then it happened. Kendrick Lamar, at Kendrick Lamar, the man who had been quiet, methodical, and almost monk-like since his last album cycle, suddenly wiped every single post from his social media. Gone. Years of content erased. No videos, no photos. Not even a tour. Announcement? Just a black square. One single caption. Rewriting the rules. That's it. No hashtags, no emojis. But that silence, it spoke louder than any diss track, and instantly the energy in hip-hop changed. The blogs lit up. At Complex, at Rap Caviar, at Academics. Everyone was scrambling to understand what they were looking at. Was this a new album cycle? A response to? At Drake, a collaborative project, a business move, or something we hadn't even considered. Meanwhile, hashtag Kendrick Lamar started trending globally, alongside hashtag industry flip, hashtag game changer, and a brand new tag started by fans, hashtag Drake Watch. Everyone wanted to know how at Champak Nu Papi, the biggest hitmaker of a generation, would respond if he'd respond at all. But before the theories could cool down, a second shockwave hit. Word began circulating through label circles that Kendrick had quietly finalized a massive distribution deal. Not just any deal, an exclusive. Artist-controlled streaming and release pipeline that could, for the first time in mainstream hip-hop history, cut major labels out of their gatekeeping position. Sources close to the deal described it as a structural change, not a stunt. This wasn't about music videos or viral moments. This was about infrastructure, control, and long-term power. Insiders started to leak fragments of what was happening. Some said Kendrick had bought into a rising tech platform. Others claimed he'd built something from scratch with silent partners in Silicon Valley. One particularly bold rumor claimed that TDE had negotiated global priority status for releases, connected to Kendrick's circle, meaning every drop would hit fans instantly. Everywhere, with full monetization in the artist's hands, bypassing the old system almost entirely. And in that moment, it clicked for a lot of people. This wasn't just about Kendrick versus Drake. This wasn't about bars or subliminals. This was about a chess move that threatened to flip the table on everybody. Because here's the truth. Drake, for all his undeniable skill and legendary run, thrives in a highly tuned machine, a system where timing and work, rollout, major label marketing, and global reach work like clockwork. He doesn't just drop music, he executes precision strikes. But Kendrick's latest move suggested a future where precision wasn't controlled by the label, or even the traditional industry. It hinted at a world where artists controlled distribution, revenue, timing, all the power points that labels have held for decades. And that right there is what set off alarms across the culture. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a superstar dropping new music. This was a shot across the bow of the entire hip-hop hierarchy. A declaration that the old rules might be dead. And fans, they felt it instantly. On Twitter, hashtags like #TheFlip, #NuaraHipHop, and #KDOTVsDrizzy were everywhere. Memes flooded TikTok and Instagram. One viral video showed a Monopoly board getting flipped in slow motion with Kendrick's face photoshopped onto the hand, captioned, "When the rules don't work for you, change the rules." Meanwhile, Drake's silence became a story of its own, normally quick with a sly emoji, a caption that doubles as a bar, or even a leaked verse. At Champo Nepapi suddenly seemed locked down. Posts went out, lifestyle, brand partnerships, family, but not a single acknowledgement of the storm that was building. And that only fueled the fire. Fans flooded his comments. "Your move, King Kendrick's rewriting the game. What you got? This feels bigger than rap, Drake." Even verified accounts got in on the commentary. A LeBron James liked a tweet that read, "Kendrick really just pulled a Jay-Z Prince hybrid move, huh?" While @Elliot Wilson tweeted, "This ain't beef. This is evolution." But behind the excitement, there was something else. Fear. Not just from labels, though they were absolutely panicking in private, but from other artists too. Because if Kendrick's pipeline worked, it meant the value of traditional rollouts. Album campaigns and chart placements would shift overnight. It meant a new power balance, where cultural weight and independent control could outweigh label, money and marketing muscle. And if that shift took hold, the entire streaming economy could be reordered in real time. Artists who had been playing by the old rules might find themselves scrambling to adjust. Contracts could become liabilities. Label leverage could plummet. And the biggest megastars, the Drakes, the J. Coles, even pop acts outside hip-hop, would suddenly be standing on a very different stage than the one they built their empires on. And that, more than any diss track, any subliminal, any back and forth, is why this story is now the only thing the culture can talk about. Kendrick Lamar didn't just send a shot, he flipped the table. He introduced chaos into a system built on control. And right now, nobody, not the labels, not the artists, not even Drake, knows exactly what happens next. #Kendrick Lamar, #Drake, #hip-hop history, #industry. Flip #game changer, @Kendrick Lamar, @Champagnapapi, @TDEWHEN. The first shockwave hit, the second didn't wait long. The streets, both digital and literal, started buzzing in a way hip-hop hasn't seen in years. People weren't just talking. They were dissecting, theorizing, panicking, celebrating, sometimes all in the same thread. The world felt like it was watching a chess match played at lightning speed between two of the biggest names in modern rap, @Kendrick Lamar and @Champagne PAPI, but now with entirely new rules on the board. On social media, the noise turned into full-scale cultural combustion. TikTok edits layered. Kendrick's past verses about ownership and independence over shots of studio equipment and streaming dashboards. Twitter threads ran 30 posts deep, tracing breadcrumbs from interviews Kendrick gave years ago, pointing to this exact moment. Screenshots of old @Drake lyrics were posted next to Kendrick quotes. Fans debating which age-old bars now looked prophetic, which now looked outdated. One tweet went viral overnight. Kendrick didn't just diss Drake. He dissed the entire music business model with a smile. 10 million views. Thousands of retweets. A quote from @MetroBoomin. "I told y'all disruption always comes from the quiet ones." Meanwhile, industry figures began breaking silence carefully. A legendary A&R posted a cryptic tweet. "I been in this game 30 years. What just happened might take another 30 to fully understand." No names, no details. It's just enough to feed the fire. Hashtag the flip trended in 14 countries. At Spotify's official account liked, then unliked, a tweet from a fan saying streaming services about to lose their grip if Kendrick's pipeline works. Artists watch closely. And then came the other artists. Rappers across coasts, generations, and genres started picking sides, or at least appearing to. At J. Cole liked a post praising Kendrick's move as artist first. At Future posted a single hourglass emoji. At Nicki Minaj posted a cryptic "The kingdom is shaking again" to her 30+ million followers. At Lil Baby tweeted then deleted, "Business different now. Time to read the contracts twice." Meanwhile, Drake's camp, normally a fortress of tight branding and calculated response, started to leak tension. Sources close to OVO described meetings running deep into the night. Calls between legal, label, and management teams stacking, back to back. Trying to figure out whether this was a real structural threat or a temporary cultural storm, one insider told it Billboard off record. They're not scared of Kendrick's talent. They're scared of what happens if this actually works. Because here's the uncomfortable truth for the industry at large. If Kendrick proves an artist of his size can not only go independent but outperform the machine while doing so, it will become the blueprint. And once a blueprint exists, others will follow. Fast. And that blueprint terrifies major players. Because it attacks the one thing they've always counted on: control. It's not about money. Money follows culture. It's about controlling timing, access, leverage, distribution, ownership, all the invisible levers that shape careers without fans ever seeing them. Kendrick just reached behind the curtain and pulled at every wire at once. Fans, of course, turned the drama into theater. TikTok was a flood of edits. Drake staring out of airplane windows with captions like, "When you realize the game just changed forever," Kendrick smiling during old interviews with overlays reading. He told us ownership was the move. Even platforms like A Genius got playful, posting a thread titled "Lines from Kendrick that hit different after this move." Some of the cultural commentary got academic. Writers at The Fadi U and at Rolling Stone posted think pieces overnight, analyzing how Kendrick's quiet power shift echoed moves from Jay-Z's title, Prince's catalog battles, even the Beatles' fight for master rights decades ago. But they all landed on one conclusion: the difference now is scale. Technology means a single artist with vision and leverage can tilt the global system faster than ever before. Behind the scenes, though, pressure mounted on Drake to respond. Not necessarily musically, not yet, but strategically. Because silence in a storm this loud isn't neutral. It starts to look like retreat. Inside OVO debates reportedly raged. Some argued Drake should strike musically, a surgical, ice-cold record reminding the world of his dominance. Others warned against falling into Kendrick's timing trap. "This isn't a diss cycle," one source told at XXL. "It's a business war disguised as cultural momentum. You swing the wrong way, you give him proof the old model fights for: survival instead of evolving." And so far, Drake played it cool publicly. His Instagram stories, calm/gym, studio, family, brand activations. But fans noticed he turned off comments on 2 recent posts. Little details, but in a war of perception, every detail is fuel. Meanwhile, tech insiders started weighing in. A former at Apple Music exec posted on LinkedIn, "If Kendrick's system scales, it changes not just hip-hop but all major artist economics. This isn't a diss track. It's a jailbreak." Even venture capitalists began sniffing around. Screenshots leaked, showing VC groups tagging each other under threads about artist-controlled platforms. Words like decentralization, direct-to-fan, equity splits suddenly trended alongside bars and memes. For the first time in years, hip-hop gossip collided with Silicon Valley speculation. And this is where the gravity of Kendrick's flip became undeniable. It wasn't just about bars, or hits, or even culture. It was about power. Who has it? Who loses it? Who adapts fast enough to keep it? Which brings us back to Drake, because for all the noise, one fact hasn't changed. He's still the biggest hitmaker of the streaming era, with a fan base so massive that even a half-measured pivot could reshape how others respond. If Kendrick built a new kingdom, Drake still holds the crown of reach. The question is whether reach beats foundation, or if this time, foundation swallows reach whole. For now, both camps sit quiet, letting the ecosystem feed itself. But in that silence, pressure grows. Every hour without a countermove feels like another inch of ground shifting toward Kendrick's vision. Every tweet, every meme, every think piece sharpens the sense that something irreversible has already begun. Nobody saw this coming, but now that it's here, nobody can look away. Hashtag Kendrick Lamar, #Drake, hashtag hip hop power shift, hashtag the flip, hashtag new era rap. At Kendrick Lamar, at Champagnepapop, at TDEIF, the first waves were structural and strategic. The third wave was emotional, musical. Because fans can debate contracts and platforms all day, but hip-hop is a culture built on rhythm, bars, and moments that live forever in headphones and car speakers. Everyone was waiting for sound. And finally, it hit. But it didn't come from Drake. Not yet. It came from Kendrick. A subtle, almost cinematic leak that didn't drop on DSPs or even YouTube first. A Loris live clip surfaced on a fan's Instagram story, recorded inside a private listening session in Compton. In the video, dim lights, a circle of heads nodding slow, and then a beat. Heavy, minimal, pulsing like a countdown. And Kendrick's Voice.com, almost conversational. I don't make threats, I build exits. Y'all still renting? I bought the exits. Can't cancel the king when the king owns the network. 3 lines. That's all it took. Fans froze, then detonated. The clip went viral before the original poster even realized what they had. Hip-hop blogs at Rap Caviar, at Complex, at XXL picked it up within an hour. Threads hit millions of views by morning. Memes emerged instantly. Drake looking out a jet window. Text overlay, bought the exits. Another with Jay-Z sipping wine. I like this business talk. And then the wild part, labels started quietly calling lawyers. Not even exaggeration, a source from a major imprint told at Variety off record. Kendrick's claiming he owns his exit routes from contracts? Others are gonna wanna know how. You can't keep artists locked in psychologically when someone just opened a door on live video. At this point, Drake's silence turned from tactical to questioned. The timeline began splitting in two, one side clowning him for ducking, while another defended that maybe, just maybe, he was preparing a nuclear answer. Hashtag where RizDrake trended alongside hashtag Kendrick knows, creating the perfect tension storm. People weren't just watching hip-hop beef anymore. They were watching a slow-motion empire clash. Live, in public, with cultural loyalty, economics, and egos colliding like tectonic plates. Meanwhile, musicians outside the rap world began chiming in. At Billie Eilish liked a tweet praising Kendrick's artist-first courage. At Ed Sheeran reposted an article calling the move a potential music history pivot. Even at Questlove from At The Roots jumped in with, been saying for years, when a top-tier MC decides to pull the machine apart with love instead of hate, the game gonna fold like laundry. Guess what time it is? This wasn't just hype. This was endorsement, quiet, coded, but powerful. When legends start approving disruption, the people who benefit from the old system start sweating. And oh, were they sweating? Boardrooms buzzed. Slack channels lit up with urgent threads. Publicists were briefing CEOs on what TikTok comments meant. This wasn't a diss track cycle anymore. This was systemic exposure dressed like hip-hop drama, and Kendrick knew it. Fans even started calling it the quiet coup, a cultural heist happening in plain sight. With bars as cover fire, somewhere in the middle of all this, an unconfirmed but widely shared screenshot surfaced from an alleged group chat between several high-level label executives. The message circled Reddit, Twitter, and Discord. If Drake doesn't neutralize the narrative musically, perception will write contracts for us. Translation: if Drake didn't flip the energy back, Kendrick's artist-first revolution might go from headline to movement. And once something becomes a movement, business models don't get patched, they get replaced. Then, as if scripted by a Netflix writer, leaks started hinting Drake was indeed in the studio, but not with his usual circle. Word spread he was working with international producers, experimental writers, even a rumored sample clearance team on standby. This wasn't going to be a typical Drake bop. This was rumored to be war, at aka DEMIKS. Never shy about stirring the pot, posted a 12-minute rant. Listen, y'all, keep playing like this is some regular rap beef. It's not. This is business chess with billion-dollar shadows. If Drake responds with just bars, it's a win for the culture but a loss for leverage. If he responds with vision, then we got a whole new game board. Fans ate it up. Twitter Spaces ran past 4 a.m. Clubhouse, resurrected like it was 2020 again. Random discords filled with graphs, theories, sample speculation, and even betting pools. Drake drops by Friday or we riot. Meanwhile, Kendrick posted a single Instagram photo, a chessboard mid-game one night positioned to corner a king. No caption, no tags. Just a photo, it broke the internet within 2 hours, over 1.2 million likes. 300K comments and speculation, running like wildfire. One fan commented, "This man is battling systems, not rappers." Another wrote, "When the marketing is the move and the move is the marketing, hashtag genius, somewhere in all this noise." The real theme crystallized. The culture wasn't just entertained, it felt empowered. For the first time in years, hip-hop's biggest storyline wasn't about petty shots or one-up bars. It was about freedom, leverage, courage, timing the guts to break what everyone else was too scared to even touch. Even journalists who normally keep hip-hop stories at arm's length started writing big pieces. The @Knit Times ran. Kendrick Lamar versus Drake, a rap battle or a corporate reckoning. The @Wall Street Journal ran a breakdown of potential revenue impacts if more artists followed Kendrick's rumored pipeline. @Forbes ran a speculative piece titled, "Could Kendrick Lamar become the first billionaire rapper without a label?" And through it all, the silence from Drake's official channels became deafening, not because it meant weakness, but because every passing hour became an invitation for a nuclear drop. Fans weren't asking if Drake would respond anymore. They were asking what world will exist after he does, because one truth was unavoidable now. No matter who wins this clash, the industry will not walk away the same. #Kendrick Lamar. #Drake, #hip-hop history in motion, #the quiet coup @Kendrick Lamar, @Champagne Poppy, @Complex Music, @XXL, @Billboard silence is power until it isn't. By the time the world hit day 4 of waiting, Drake's usual calm confidence had become the loudest sound in the room. Hip-hop wasn't breathing. It was holding its breath. The biggest rapper of a generation, cornered by an enemy who wasn't even throwing traditional punches anymore, but rearranging the entire ring. The entire industry had tilted, not just for fans, but for executives, competitors, even quiet collaborators. Then it happened. A single post, no caption. Hashtags. It's just a white image with black text on @Champagnoppy's Instagram story. Midnight. That was it. 2 syllables. But 2 syllables that detonated across the internet like a missile alert. Twitter, Threads, TikTok all reset their clocks. DJs went live. Memes turned prophetic. Betting pools closed. Midnight wasn't just a time anymore. It was a countdown to cultural detonation. 12 a.m. Eastern. Spotify crashes for 5 minutes under sudden load. Apple Music servers buckle. YouTube comments explode by the thousands per minute. The title appears, Tables. It's produced by names nobody predicted, mixed with surgical precision. No leaks, no snippets. It's Drake's voice, not emotional, not angry, strategic. It's from the very first bar, you could feel it wasn't just a diss track. It was a controlled demolition, not only aimed at Kendrick, but at the system Kendrick had started shaking. You built a kingdom on the quiet, like I couldn't hear the bricks. But I've been owning the architect since '06. You're trying to free the game, I signed the keys you trying to pick. You fighting giants I've been feeding? Welcome to politics, fans screamed. Some cried betrayal. Some called it the smartest verse Drake ever wrote. Because in those 4 lines alone, he didn't fight. The movement, he absorbed it. He positioned himself not as the villain, not as the gatekeeper, but as someone who already owned the very freedom Kendrick was now fighting for. It was masterful misdirection. Take the revolution, claim it as legacy, neutralize the attack. By adopting its very message. Second verse hit harder. Name drops. Not for clout, but for proof. He referenced at Lil Wayne, at Jay-Z, even whispered coded nods to CEOs by initials only lawyers understood. He said he'd renegotiated out of his masters years ago. Claimed he'd funded quiet buyouts that allowed younger rappers to leave toxic deals. Every door you're kicking in, I built the hall, removed the hinges. Every lock you're screaming at, I melted years ago. Check the blueprints. This point, hip-hop wasn't watching a beef. It was watching a battle for historical narrative. 2 kings both fighting for the same story, but from opposite ends. Kendrick, the rebel visionary breaking chains in public, and Drake, the soft-spoken mogul revealing he'd already replaced them quietly, like a chess master winning without. Moving a piece. The world went insane, at Complex Music called it. Not a diss track, a declaration. At Rolling Stone, Drake just reframed the revolution as a sequel. He wrote first. At Joe Budden podcast, spent 2 hours screaming in disbelief, half in admiration, half in confusion. Because nobody saw this coming. Nobody. It wasn't ether. It wasn't kill shots. It wasn't even war. It was a political move disguised as art. Kendrick flipped the table. Drake turned the entire board into origami. And Kendrick, he stayed silent for 24 hours. Then 48. Then 72. Fans started realizing the chess match wasn't about who rapped better. Both were titans. It was about who controlled the room after the smoke cleared. The hashtags evolved from hashtag Team Kendrick and hashtag Team Drake to something bigger. Hashtag Hip Hop Shift. Hashtag Ownership Pura. Hashtag Power Moves Only. Even as Snoop Dogg jumped on Instagram Live. Man, I don't even know if that was a battle or a TED Talk. CA. These young kings fighting with paperwork and poetry. I'm just gone roll up and watch the empire rebuild itself. Behind the scenes, label interns, leaked screenshots, meetings about artist contract flexibility, sudden calls for emergency PR resets. Lawyers quietly drafting opt-out clauses for cultural optics. In plain English, the culture war had forced the machine to blink first. And in a way nobody expected. Both Drake and Kendrick had won just differently. Kendrick had made the system look fragile. Drake had made himself look like he'd already fixed it. Together, without ever agreeing, they'd pulled hip-hop into its next chapter by week's end. Even artists who hadn't tweeted in months started. POSTING cryptic notes about changes coming. No more chains, only choices. Freedom season. TikTok filled with edits, not of bars, but of contracts being metaphorically shredded. Young rappers stitched old interviews of Drake and Kendrick, overlaying new captions. The blueprint was always there, we just had to see it. The final act wasn't applause. It wasn't diss responses. It wasn't even peace treaties. It was a cultural reset in real time. No beef ended, no one died. But the industry got flipped for real this time, not in chaos, but in clarity. The fans felt like they'd witnessed history, not just a moment, but a hinge. A before and after in music power disguised as gossip and drama, but functioning as blueprint and warning shot at once. By Sunday, both artists posted again. Kendrick, a photo of an empty studio chair. Drake, a picture of a contract unsigned, with only the words, "Let them eat." No captions, no explanations. Just two modern giants acknowledging that sometimes the fight isn't to destroy the throne, it's to redesign it. And hip-hop, it didn't just breathe again. It exhaled. Kendrick Lamar, Drake, #hip-hop shift. #ownership era, #cultural reset at Kendrick Lamar, at Champaganepape, at Complex Music, at XXL, at Rolling Stone, at Billboard. But now it's your turn. Where do you stand? Is this the end of an era, the birth of a new one? Or just the calm before another storm nobody sees coming? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. #Team Kendrick, #Team Drake, or #Team New Era. And let's see which side is running the culture tonight. Don't forget, hit that like button if you felt the chills. Subscribe for every twist as it breaks. Okay, and turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next move in the biggest rap chess game of the decade. Because trust me, the next move, it's already being planned. And when it drops, you're gonna want to be here first. #hip-hop shift, #cultural reset, #rap history unfolding at Kendrick Lamar, at Champaganepape, at XXL, at Billboard.